Here I am, climbing up, feeling great, getting love. Here I go, risk it all, be worth it now, and that's for sure. Watch me as I rock a team, flying high.
All right, here we are, episode 7, Fight Talk Down Under. It's been a big week in Anzac MMA, so we've got a fair bit to cover. I sound a bit like Eddie Maguire there, actually. You know, what a big week it's been in football. I don't know. But, my co-host is originally from Queensland and now hails from Wollongong, New South Wales. So probably has no idea what I'm talking about. But I speak, of course, of Lockjaw Justin Van Heerden.
If it's not rugby union, I have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, of course.
Just quietly.
AFL
but
reference is probably over your head.
although I did play AFL briefly in school, so I just winged it. They just told me to tackle people, so that's what I did. But yeah, so I had a brief stint as an AFL player, so I can't complain about that. But I'm doing good. Yeah, it was a big weekend of MMA. So there's lots happening, lots to unpack. It was I'm still kind of like on a high from the whole weekend from everything that happened. So yeah, I'm excited to talk about it and break it all down.
Yeah, it looks like you carried the same mindset into your MMA career there. You just tend to just tackle people, really. That's sort of the game plan, isn't it?
Yeah. It's obviously, that's always in my back pocket. That's something that I know about with it. I feel like like people know, they obviously know I can wrestle and I can grapple and stuff like that. And I got very good pressure wrestling and stuff like that. But so I guess people are always going to be expecting that, and it's kind of fun for me moving forward to know that there's all these other things that I'm going to be able to bust out and people are going to be surprised by and not ready for. But then at the same time, that is a pretty good thing to have in my back pocket, that to know that the level of wrestling and grappling that I possess, you can't just prepare for with like a 6-week, 8-week, 10-week, 12-week camp. Like, this is not going to help you.
Absolutely, and that's been proven time and time again in the UFC. So it's definitely a handy ace to have up your sleeve there. But yeah, for all our listeners out there, if you do need to look Justin up, probably do it on Facebook, because you won't find him on Instagram anymore. What's happened there?
Mr. Mark Zuckerberg has axed me. I've joined the select club. I'm in there with the Paddy, the Baddies. I'm in there with the Darren Tills. Had the old Insta account scrapped. Because apparently nowadays on Instagram, it's okay to tell someone to go kill themselves, but it's not okay for me to tell that person that they're a fat piece of shit and they need to stay out of the comment section. But yeah, it's apples and oranges. I guess I fat shamed a dude, and you can't do that, but you can tell an MMA fighter who's just had a loss that she should go kill herself. So I don't know what's going on there. I don't even know if I want my old Instagram account back after some bullshit like that, but we'll see what happens. So for everyone, I now have a new Instagram account. It's the handle is Lockjaw MMA. So that is the new one. That is the fresh start that we've had to make due to Mark Zuckerberg's I guess incompetence. But we'll see what happens. Who knows? I might get lucky and get my account back. If not, we'll just move forward and keep spreading the joy that I do on Instagram and the banter that I sort of put out there as well.
Absolutely. It's kind of a blessing in disguise there. Lockjaw MMA is a pretty good handle to have there. So, it kind of works out all right.
Yeah, can't complain about it. So, I'll take what comes and kind of just deal with it from there.
Absolutely. Well, as we mentioned, we've got a lot to unpack this week, so we might get stuck straight into it. And we'll start off with the UFC from the weekend. It was Aspinall versus Volkov, but obviously we had a New Zealand representative, representing the Anzac region. It was Dan Hooker who took on Arnold Allen. Probably from my perspective, maybe Hooker he started off a bit slowly. He looked a bit slow. I don't know if that was a result of him sort of sucking down to featherweight, or whether he was just kind of finding his range. But we've seen Hooker sort of struggle to weather the storm a little bit against Michael Chandler, and it kind of proved to be the same again against Arnold Allen. Arnold just blitzed forward and It was a wild flurry. He told everyone on the mic after the fight that he has the best boxing in the UFC. But I don't know that was really a boxing exhibition right there. He was kind of just winging punches, and Dan Hooker had a hell of a chin on him. But in the end, Arnold Allen sort of managed to break through. So what did you think of Dan Hooker's performance from the weekend?
I mean, that was rough to watch, bro. That was rough to watch. It sucks to see Dan lose because he's such a likable guy. And to see the run he's had lately. And now, obviously, where does that leave him? Is he going to stay at featherweight? Is he going to have to move back up to lightweight? Who knows? But based on that fight there, that was really rough. He looked super slow. He looked like he didn't. Yeah, he just wasn't aware of his range. He kind of just stood there. Like, obviously, fair enough. Arnold Allen blitzed him, and he was fast and powerful and blitzed him and exploded in, but he got cracked. It's not like Dan then adjusted and got back out of range and used his length. He kind of just stayed there. And then, was just getting tagged. In that one of those exchanges, he managed to land a left hook of his own that kind of wobbled Arnold a little bit. But again, instead of then readjusting, kind of finding, switching it up a bit, maybe grabbing the clinch, shooting a takedown, getting all the way out, doing something to adjust and kind of reset, he kind of just stayed there. And Arnold just followed up and went with speed, power, and volume. And he obviously was able to put him away. So that's a rough result. It leaves Dan in a pretty awkward spot. I mean, he's enough of a name now in the UFC and enough of a notable fighter and likable fighter and fan friendly fighter that I don't think he'll get cut per se. But I mean, he's just in an awkward spot now because it's like if he stays at featherweight. I mean, he's saying, he works with the same people I work with the fight dietitian team and that, and they're the best at what they do with in terms of, doing the weight descents and weight cuts in the best and healthiest way. And that's how, I don't think he struggled to make 45 or depleted himself overly too much. I think he had to be a lot more disciplined to do it. But, like, what do you do? Do you stay at featherweight and fight more killers? Because, I mean, Arnold Allen was a stiff test for him. You look at that top five and the people that are there, like the matchups are going to be a lot harder than that. I mean, think about standing across from Max Holloway and having to face that onslaught that he brings. I mean, he's a volume puncher that just keeps going, just keeps coming forward. So, but it's weird because Dan Hooker seems to have changed how even how he stands and everything. He used to be like up tall, lengthy, uses length. Now he seems to stand a lot lower. His legs are wider, so I don't know if that's because of the takedowns. Like if that kind of is mentally in the back of his mind, he's like, I've got to stand. I've got to widen my stance. I've got to stand a bit lower. I've got to really batten down a bit. Place my weight down low and kind of just sit in a little more. But whatever it is, it's almost like it's just causing him to just freeze and not really be the violent and technical Dan Hooker that we're used to seeing. Like you look at some of that guy, I think people need to go back and watch some of this guy's finishes and the people he's put away and realize, Dan's super legit and he's one of the best fighters on the planet. So I don't know. We're going to see what happens and what adjustments he makes, whether he goes back up to 55. Maybe he uses that long length and frame that he has and builds on some real size and goes to welterweight. But even then, that's another hard task because the top five is filled with people who can wrestle, filled with people who are just going to just look to take you down and exploit those areas where, based on his recent fights, it seems like he struggles a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Hooker's got enough credits in the bank for some of the incredible fights he's had, like Paul Felder and Dustin Poirier, and obviously he took the Makhachev fight on short notice, and some of the he's helped the UFC out a few times, so I don't think he's in any danger of getting cut. But we talked about this last week. He's probably in danger of falling into like the gatekeeper sort of status now. Like he's obviously just lost to an up and coming fighter at featherweight. He was he's lost a few fights recently at lightweight as well, so he's kind of I think he's 32 years old or something, so he's in danger of falling into that category. So whatever he does, he's going to have to make a smart decision and try and put some wins together. Otherwise, it's he's probably going to go down that track.
Yeah, Yeah, I don't know. I can't. I don't know the path that Dan needs to take. It's something that he's going to have to sit down and work out with his coaches and his team and stuff like that. But if you are going to go back to lightweight, and you have to deal with some guys who are just going to look to wrestle you and take you down and exploit that sort of area, and it's something that you need to adjust. Fuck Dan, come to freestyle, bro. Like, come train at freestyle. I'm sure you'll get plenty of rounds in with some guns that can do just that in those areas and be able to sort of boost you up, and they're going to benefit from training with someone like Dan fucking Hooker. So that's an option. But maybe you throw a full spanner in the works. You pull a Bam Bam and go to AKA and do a camp. Go train with the guy that took you down and submitted you so quickly, and go pick up a few things here and there. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't need to even do anything like that. Maybe it could be something completely different that's causing this sort of block or freeze or sort of hurdle for Dan in these fights. It might be something simple that he himself already knows and can figure out. But all I want to say is that I just want to see the guy get back to the momentum that he had going into the Poirier fight, and just see him do well and get back to sort of working his way towards potentially fighting for a UFC title. That'd be the ultimate sort of outcome for Dan.
Absolutely, we all love watching Dan Hooker, so hopefully he can find a way forward there, and like you kind of mentioned there, we've seen plenty of guys have success moving overseas, or at least having a change of scenery. A lot of guys are going to Sanford MMA and AKA and those sorts of places. So who knows? Maybe something like that might help him, but I guess that's something that they'll only know sort of internally. But we won't sort of cover off the card too much from the weekend, because we've got a fair bit to cover locally. But one I did want to mention was Paddy Pimblett. That was just the one that stood out. That was one of the highlights of the night for me. It was just kind of like, I don't know. I watched Paddy Pimblett fight, and the walkout and all the dancing and the madness and stuff that goes on, and I think to myself, like, I don't really know what I just watched, but I kind of want more of it, So, yeah, what did you think of, obviously, Paddy Pimblett? I'll just cover that off. He beat Kazula Vargas by round 1 submission. He got cracked with a pretty decent punch early on, and then he managed to put Kazula down with a pretty sweet judo sort of hip toss there, and close the show with a rear naked choke. So, yeah, what do you reckon of Paddy Pimblett?
Man, I like the dude. I like the dude. I've followed him since he was in Cage Warriors, and it's cool. I like the vibe and the energy that the English fans bring for whenever that dude's when he's fighting, and to see him at the O2 and to see the crowd get into it, and the whole, like you said, with the dancing and the celebrating afterwards, jumping out of the cage, jumping around, dancing around, just getting into it with the crowd and all sorts, and obviously getting that first round finish, that was all cool to watch. But not to rain on the dude's parade, but the big thing that stands out for me is Paddy the Baddy's going to get his shit fucking scrambled if he fights some of these dudes that he's got ahead of him in the lightweight division moving forward. He stands with his chin straight up like this, and like he's just happy to get hit, and that's cool when you're fighting someone who maybe isn't able to exploit that. But go do that shit in front of some of these other lightweights and see how it works out for you. Like, moving forward is probably not a good plan. Obviously, the dude's got a chin on him. Like, he's shown that he's been cracked in both his UFC fights, and even in some of his Cage Warrior fights. Like, he got his bell rung a few times, and I know he's got the moniker going on that Scousers can't get knocked out and all this sort of shit. But I bet you there's someone out there that can knock you out, if not multiple people in the lightweight division. Like, I don't think you want to stand in front of like Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier, Charles Oliveira, people like that. Chandler, Tony Ferguson. You can't stand in front of dudes like that with your chin up in the air. You're going to get lit up. You're going to get put to sleep. So, so that's something that I'd like to see sort of adjusted moving forward for the guy. But obviously, he's a superstar, and he can potentially be a massive star for the UFC. It's just going to be how do they approach promoting him, and how do they take it forward? If they do it slowly and build him up, man, this dude can soak in all the experience, keep getting these wins, keep getting the hype. So he's generating lots of money, and gets himself into a position where he gets a dope contract and all that sort of stuff. And then obviously for the UFC, he's going to generate pay-per-views and buys, and all sorts. But you've got to build him up slowly, I guess. You kind of got to take the Sean O'Malley approach and kind of let him get there when he's ready to be there. Not let him have like one or two more fights, and then all of a sudden we're sitting here, we're sitting here recording an episode of our show, and all of a sudden we get like a notification that goes off, and it's like Paddy the Baddy is fighting Michael Chandler, and then you're like, oh no, Paddy the Baddy's gonna die. Like that's not what I want to see. I don't want to see him rushed into anything. But yeah, I do like the dude's vibe. I like the fact that the UFC are cashing in and putting him and Molly McCann in the same cards, and getting them in there together because they're quite a pair. So yeah, it's the same sort of thing that you said. Like, know what it is about the dude, but I'm intrigued whenever he's fighting and whenever he's around, and yeah, I want to tune in. So obviously, I like the dude, big fan, but I also, you gotta be honest with what we've seen so far, and the dude's going to get his bell rung hard if he fights like that with some of the people he's got in front of him.
Absolutely, that was pretty much where I was going with this. Actually, I think they do need to build Paddy up slowly. I think there's definitely some potential there. He's fun to watch. He's he's a finisher. He's obviously got some skills. All of those sorts of things. But I remember watching him back in Cage Warriors. He fought Julian Erosa, who has since actually made his way back to the UFC, and he's reeled off some wins there. But I thought the fight went the distance, and Paddy got the decision, but I didn't think he won it. I thought Julian Erosa did enough, and I remember watching that fight and thinking, geez, I don't know if the hype is as real as people say. And he talks a big game, and he, like you say, he says the whole Scousers can't get knocked out sort of thing. But I think he's headed towards a big slice of humble pie if they rush him forward too fast. But like you say, there's a lot of star power, like star potential there, and if they take their time with him, then I think it could be a good one for the UFC. But we'll probably we'll keep going. We'll here in the local scene, in sort of UFC news, I guess. It was announced during the week that Steve Erceg, the eternal flyweight champion, has been signed to compete on Dana White Contender Series, which is it's obviously a coup for Australian MMA to see someone like that, and one of the good guys like Steve Erceg as well. It's always good to see, and it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. We don't have an opponent, we don't have a date just yet, but it's a big opportunity for Steve in a division that's probably there's some openings for some new stars. So it's a good thing for Australian MMA and for Steve Erceg. What do you reckon?
Yeah, nah, like you said, couldn't have happened to a better dude, man. That dude's super nice, super respectful. Every time I've sort of spoken to him or been around him, it's just been a pleasure. And obviously the dude can fight, like can do it all. He's very well rounded. So, there's a bit like people talk about a bunch of people in Australian MMA that when we say they're like well rounded, but man, that dude's really well rounded. Like he's shown that in his last few performances. Like you watch his fight against Shannon Ross, you watch his fight against Cody Haddon. It's like the guy was doing it all. He's winning the striking, winning the grappling, winning the wrestling. He can just seem to just chain it together and just keep performing and overcome, like when he's in positions where he's experiencing some adversity, and just immediately flip a switch and be back in a dominant position and kind of securing the fight and getting those finishes, or just running away with absolute clear-cut decisions. So that's cool. I'm excited to see who they give him and to see, when that's sort of happening. And yeah, like you said, that flyweight division's heating up a bit. There's some new talent coming in. There's some fresh sort of guys that have risen up recently, and obviously you got guys that are just going to keep helping to sort of build up and elevate that division now. It was kind of a bit there after, you saw Demetrius kind of fade away, and you saw, Cejudo fade away, and you kind of see Benavidez was on the outs and stuff like that. And you were kind of looking at that division going, oh, I don't know, like they don't really, like what are they going to do? Are they going to keep it? Are they not going to keep it? What are they going to try and get more talent? Like what's the go? And you look at it now and you've got like obviously Figgy, Marino, Kai Kara France. These dudes are all in there and putting on exciting fights and getting us jumping out of our seats. So yeah, I'm hyped, and I'm interested to see how he slots into that division, because the dude's for sure going to fight on the Contender Series. He's going to start every fight. He's going to get a contract, and then it's going to be see how he goes in that division.
Absolutely, and like you say, there's some serious ability there in Steve Erceg, and there's no real obvious weakness with him. He's obviously fantastic on the mat. He's he's got I guess a diverse arsenal standing up as well, and some genuine power. We saw him, stop Paul Logar as well. I think a couple of times even in the end. So there's definitely some ability there, and it's going to be really fun to see where he goes. He's a good age too. I think Steve's maybe around 26, 27, somewhere around there. So he's just he's coming into his prime, and it's going to be a fun watch for Australian MMA fans. So if anyone hasn't heard of Steve Erceg out there, then look him up and keep your eye out for Dana White Contender Series.
Yeah, 100%. Definitely go watch his fights. Go watch his fights that he's had on Eternal, and you'll get a nice surprise that if you don't know who he is.
Definitely, and I'm glad you mentioned Kai Kara France there before as well. He's back in action this weekend. He's got there's no easy fights for the Anzac fighters in the UFC. He's riding some momentum at the moment. Kai Kara France coming off the stoppage win over Cody Garbrandt, obviously a former UFC champion, and this time he's putting all of that on the line in a big way against an undefeated fighter in Askar Askarov. So how do you view that sort of scenario?
I don't like this matchup at all for Kai Kara France. Look, I like the dude, and obviously Kai's a beast, and he's shown that he just keeps getting better. And he's shown in his recent fights, like you said, that he's just hit a whole new level. And like I want to see the Anzacs do well, so I want to see Kai do well and get the W. But fuck, they didn't give him an easy fight, man. You got a guy in front of you that is like a pocket-sized Khabib Nurmagomedov, and he is just going to look to take you down and wear on you and break you down and make you quit, or just give you an out, and then whether you capitalize on that and he's going to submit you, or he's just going to punch you until you quit or the ref stops it. So it's just going to be this is one of those matchups where it's not like, oh, but what if, he's able to keep it sort of standing and he's able to sort of do his thing. It's a case of you need to keep it standing and hope that you land those hard punches that you have in your arsenal and put this guy away, because if he gets you down, it's a wrap.
Absolutely, and it seems we love Kai Kara France, and he's completely fearless. He's not afraid of any challenge, and he'll take on all comers. But on paper, this looks like the worst possible matchup for him, really. And to me, it just it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. He's like I mentioned before, he's coming off the Cody Garbrandt win. He's riding all this momentum, and then he's sort of taking on Askarov, who's obviously a really tough fighter, but he's kind of still largely unknown. So it seems like a tough break for Kai Kara France there.
Yeah, and the main thing I don't like, and I'm starting to sound like a broken record, keep harping on this shit, but the main thing I don't like about this sort of stuff when they approach these matchups is all these guys, they're like, oh, yeah, I ain't worried about it. I ain't worried about the wrestling. I ain't worried about the grappling. And then look what happens. They end up getting taken down. They end up getting controlled. They end up not having an answer for it, and they end up getting bashed. Like, you have to respect it. Like, I don't understand how when it comes to, you see these guys that get matched with someone who's like a dangerous striker, or, got like an extensive kickboxing record, or blah, 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 blah. And people are like so respectful of it. And they're like, yep, I've got to be careful. I've got to be disciplined, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to go out there and do my thing. But when it comes to the wrestling and the grappling specialists, or these guys that are absolute killers, like in that sort of sense, these guys are like, nah, I ain't worried about it, man. I've fought people that wrestle before, whatever. Like, I'm in the UFC. I'm one of the best fighters in the world. I don't care. And then they just get bashed. So it's like, you need, like, it's what we spoke about a few episodes ago. It's like, you got to humble yourself. Don't just be doing it, going through the motions. Like, you got to put it in, because you already aren't going to learn anything in a 12-week camp that's going to like magically give you, like a one technique conquers all type approach and get you back to your feet. But what you are going to be able to do is knuckle down in them 12 weeks and actually, put all your time and emphasis into when you're working on those wrestling and grappling exchanges, and like just fundamentally 1% each time increasing the stuff defensively to be able to improve enough, like enough that you're going to have the opportunity to know that your body's going to react well, and you're going to be able to do these things to try and reset the fight get back to your feet, as opposed to just like, oh, you know, I learned, yeah, so I've done the prep in the lead up, but you know, you did one or two things and then it doesn't work out in the fight, and then all of a sudden you're just stuck again.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a throwaway line, isn't it? When people sort of say, "Oh, you know, I'm fine, I can handle the wrestling," you know, all that sort of stuff. But you know, many have tried and many have failed against these Russian wrestlers. And you know, I guess I think I might have even said this on the podcast before, but I always recall Daniel Cormier when he was breaking down Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Conor McGregor. You know, Conor McGregor did the same thing. He said, you know, it's fine. You know, I've got the best coaches in the world. I can prepare for the wrestling, all that sort of stuff. And then, you know, Daniel Cormier said, well, you know, he might be able to, in camp, he might be able to prepare for takedown number 1, you know, takedown number 2. He might even be able to prepare for takedown number 3. But Khabib has takedowns number, you know, a different kind of takedown number 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 as well to go to. He's not going to be able to cover all those off in one camp, and it's kind of you know, probably a little bit of a similar scenario for Kai Kara-France here. But look, you know, you never know. He might sprawl his way out of it, and then knock Askar Askarov out and take take his O. But you know, it doesn't look great on paper, does it?
No, well, I mean, that's the result I'd like to see. I'd like to see him absolutely starch the dude and keep the momentum and move forward and potentially get himself towards a title shot, because a fight with Figgy or a fight with Marino or someone like that is, you know, that's a matchup. Both those matchups suit him quite well, especially the fight of like a fight with Figgy. Like, you know, Figgy's shown in his last couple of fights with Marino that he's definitely hittable, and you know, Marino was able to hurt him with some punches, and especially in the last fight, like they both kind of cracked each other and hurt each other a few times. But yeah, I don't think either of those guys would be able to wear those punches that Kai can put on them as easy as they did with each other. Obviously, Figgy can put anyone away, but he's also very hittable. So, you know, if Kai can overcome this hurdle that's in front of him, we could potentially see him fighting for a belt, and I favour him over the other guys.
100%, and he'll have earned it if he can get through Askarov. Then yeah, I think he's earned it. But you know, speaking of guys getting starched, unfortunately we had New Zealand's BJ Bland in action in the PFL on the weekend, and yeah, it didn't go so well in the end. It wasn't BJ's night. He got stopped early by Damir Ferhatbegovic. I've been practicing that all week, so as you can probably tell. But Damir looked pretty good. You know, he looked pretty sharp standing up, and you know, BJ he tried to sort of press him early, but yeah, in the end he got cracked and yeah, stopped pretty early, and in the end, and Damir, you know, he kind of missed out on the contract, but yeah, it was a rough night for BJ Bland.
Yeah, it was always going to be a tall task for the guy, man, getting his visa that late, having to travel, pretty much landing and having to, you know, make weight straight up. Like he landed just before the scales opened or some shit and had to like make weight, and, you know, would have been severely jet lagged, and then you got to get in there and fight, you know, someone who's trying to knock your head off because they want to potentially win a contract just as bad as you do, because they want to potentially be in the running to fight for $1 million and change their life and their family's lives. So, you know, credit to BJ for still showing up, doing everything, like pushing through all the bullshit, getting there and having a crack. And obviously, sucks that it didn't go his way. Hopefully, you know, he can, through some way, maybe he has to kind of go back on the sort of oceanic circuit, rattle off maybe a win or two, and hopefully they can, you know, potentially give him another crack at this Challenger Series or something like that, and hopefully this time, you know, there's no hiccups for the guy if that does happen, so he can actually get out there and perform, because the guy's very good, and if people haven't seen him fight before, like someone else you got to go check out, man. And he's fought like all the top people in the Oceanic region. You know, he's very experienced. He's very dangerous. Trains at a really good team, City Kickboxing. So the guy's got all the tools to certainly rebound from this and make it back up at this sort of world stage and kind of, you know, start a big journey towards some success. So I want to see that happen. And also the New Zealand US embassy can go fuck themselves. So that's ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, kind of like you mentioned there, I think it's sort of back to the drawing board after a loss like that for BJ Bland. So yeah, hopefully he can reel off some wins and get another opportunity. But it was kind of interesting just watching the sort of contract ceremony thing that they do afterwards in PFL. I don't know if you sat through all that afterwards, but I was oh my god, I was cringing watching that. It was. After the fight, for those who don't know, after the fight, the winner, they throw to Randy Couture and I can't remember who else was cage side now. There was some lady there who's obviously involved in PFL as well, and they gave them like feedback on the spot on their on their performance. And then at the end of the show, after the 4 fights, they gather everyone in the cage and they do they have like a panel of judges that vote on who gets the contract. The fans also vote on who gets a contract, and if it's one apiece, if the fans vote for one and the judges vote for another, then Ray Sefo, who's the president of the PFL, has the deciding vote. So in the end, I think the fans voted for Demir, and then the judges voted for Bruno Miranda, and in the end, Ray Sefo went for Miranda. But that whole sequence was just cringe. It just sent a chill down my spine. I don't know if you watched it all, but what did you think of all of that?
Yeah, that was super weird. And Randy Couture needs to shut his old decrepit ass up, man. That dude needs to just chill. Fucking hell. Yeah, that was weird. It was super weird. Like, what do you like? What is this, MasterChef? Like, are we out here trying to just do reality TV and get some, like? It's not like a fucking weekly show on a network in in America or here in Australia or something like that, where there's people sitting at home like from Married at First Sight, and we want to see drama and we want to see all these sort of things. Like, there's people here trying to fight, like copping like brain damage and potentially getting all the momentum taken away from them for the chance to win a contract with your promotion, and then you're out here doing like the weirdest shit ever afterwards. But yeah, strange, but obviously, yeah, good on them, I guess, for giving these people the opportunity to earn a contract, but also, yeah, maybe make some adjustments to your process and how you're sort of doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I love what PFL are doing. The whole tournament setup is fun. It's something different, and then they've got the Challenger Series, which is pretty good too. But I guess they're sort of only maybe 2 or 3 years into that big sort of push since they got bought out and became the PFL. So I guess they can iron out some kinks like that, because that was cringe. So hopefully they watch that back, and maybe they can make some tweaks to it. But moving over to one championship, this weekend we've got John Wayne Parr, who's obviously I interviewed a couple of weeks ago. You can find that on the Fight News Australia YouTube channel. It was a great chat. He's always a good interview, so go check that one out. Obviously, once you've finished listening to Fight Talk Down Under. But he's fighting for the very last time. At 45 years old, he's stuck on 99 wins. He's taking on Edward Foleyang, who's a former world MMA champion. So it's a big event for Australian MMA. And it's a big card for one championship. Actually, they're it's a stacked card. It's headlined by Angela Lee versus Stamp Fairtex, which is obviously the end of the Atomweight Grand Prix. It was supposed to be their 10th anniversary event last year, but it got cancelled due to COVID, and they were determined to have fans in attendance, so they pushed it back to this year. So it's a big one for one championship. They're obviously trying to push into some new markets and stuff, but JWP on the card is fighting for the last time. So how do you feel about this matchup?
Yeah, I want to see JWP go out there, head kick this bloke, get paid, get out of there and be done, and get to the next stage, I guess, of his life and his career in martial arts, which would be building up, the future champions that we're gonna hope to see do well in martial arts, in whether that's in Muay Thai, MMA, whatever it is, because as we spoke about at Bunchu, they've kind of added the BJJ syllabus and the MMA sort of stuff to their timetables now, and they're building that side of things as well. So it'd be interesting to see how that all tracks moving forward for JWP post one championship's anniversary show. But I think they've, as opposed to the fight with Nikki Holzken, this fight's a bit more, the cards favor JWP a bit more. It's it's a winnable fight for sure, and it's a fight. I guess not only a winnable fight, but it's a fight for. It's a kind of a one of those fights where JWP is going to be able to sort of empty the bag of tricks that he has. Show out a bit for the fans. There's going to be lots of people watching around the world. They've obviously they get some decent views. I guess they they often fudge the numbers a little bit because they're trying to compete with the UFC and Bellator, so they make it out like they've got 1 billion people watching every show, but they definitely do get a lot of people in the markets that they're in. So I just hope that he's able to go out there, perform the way that we've seen him perform over the years, and the way that's earned him 10 world titles and allowed him to catch numerous bodies over the years. And I just hope that he does the same thing because, like you said, the dude's just a bloody legend, and he's super likable. He's always good for a chat. You see the guy when he's at events and stuff like that. He's got time for everyone. He's always talking to people. He's taking photos. He's having chats with people. Like I've seen him at events where he's like having like an hour-long conversation with someone just because they were talking about martial arts and just were so interested and engrossed in the topic of conversation. And that's always cool. So yeah, dude's super likable. He's a bloody legend for Australian combat sports, and definitely deserves to get that 100th win in a violent way and get paid all the money and then get out.
Absolutely. The term legend gets thrown around a lot in sports, but John Wayne Parr is a genuine legend, particularly in Muay Thai circles. I think something like 10 world titles. He was a real trailblazer in terms of going to Thailand. He was one of the first foreigners to go to Thailand and fight in the stadiums over there, and really paved the way for a lot of people. Like everyone does it now. I've been to been to Thailand and trained over there, and he sort of opened those doors for foreigners. Showed people that you can actually do it, and guys like him are the reason that there's an industry like that over in Thailand. But to be fair, he probably looked his age in his last fight against Nicky Holzken. So hopefully he can go out and get win number 100. And the matchup with Foley Young, it kind of feels like it might be a bit of a layup for him there. Obviously Foley Young, he's fought most of his career in MMA. He's got a wushu background, and he's this fight's taking place under Muay Thai rules. And Foley Young's 40 or 41 years old himself. He's probably lost a step. He used to starch people as well, but he's 1-6 in his last 7. So it looks like it might be a little bit of a layup for JWP, and hopefully he can go out with a win. Yeah,
no, that's for sure. It's good matchmaking by One Championship to kind of set this fight up like that. So I'm all for it.
Absolutely, and he's got the name value as well, so they can bill it as legend versus legend, but hopefully it's as JWP, as he said in his interview, riding off in his unicorn with 100 wins under his belt, and living happily ever after.
For our viewers, I'll just sum it up for them. So they call a bunch of people legends in sports, in all sorts of different sports, but that's for combat sports. I'll do like an easy comparison. So you go John Wayne Parr, legend, Anthony Mundine, fuckwit. There you go. That's the difference. Like legend, fuckwit. That's how you can clarify. If you have like a meter and you have the two of them there, you just have John Wayne Parr on one side that says legend. You have fuckwit on the other, and the needle, like depending on what you ask for, the needle's just going to jackknife back and forth like that.
Absolutely, and John Wayne Parr even has a win over Anthony Mundine, just to solidify that point there as well. So there's some MMA or boxing maths there at the end there as well to cap that off. But also, we've got to get to Eternal 64. That was a huge card on the weekend up on the Gold Coast. It was headlined by Jack Jenkins versus Rod Costa. But we'll break it down. We won't spend too much time on each fight. But the first fight was Rocky Ogden, who's I actually have to clarify. I got called out on this a couple of times during the week. I did say last week that Rocky Ogden trains at Boonshu, but apparently he trains at NTG with under Nugget.
We missed that.
So, so that was an oversight. I do need to use social media a little bit more, but there you go. So Rocky Ogden of NTG. Was the first fight. He took on Matt Seedon, who was 0-3 going into the fight, but has a bit of a striking background of his own. And in the end, it was a competitive fight. I thought Ogden didn't look too out of place in the grappling exchanges in the end, but his striking was just was razor sharp in the end. And it was a closely contested closely contested decision, went to split decision. Even the commentators were split on who might have won it. But who did you have winning it?
Matt Matt won that fight.
Yeah, there you go.
Matt won the fight. Like I don't see any area of that fight. Like I think going into the third round, like Rocky was able to show out a bit with his striking in the third round, but I think going into the third round, he was down 2 rounds. Um, that's my opinion, my personal opinion on the fight. I've spoken to a few other people who sort of share that, but it is what it is. Once it goes to that decision, it's all up in the air. And if you don't win the decision, you don't win the decision, and you kind of just have to like suck it up and deal with it because you let it go to the judges. Like we all know that. I did find out though that Rocky actually ruptured either his orbital or his retina in the fight and couldn't see for most of the fight. So if that is confirmed and that's the case, well, good on the bloke if he couldn't see for most of the fight and he was able to, still make it competitive and show out with his striking and do well in those grappling exchanges. And I mean, the guy's only been doing MMA, I think, for maybe fully immersed himself into it for maybe 3 months or something like that. So, if that's the case, good on the dude. And that kind of, makes it a bit more intriguing. But I still feel like Matt was 2 rounds up going into that third round. So, but credit to both boys. They put on a show, and it was a great fight to watch and a great fight to open up the main card with.
Absolutely, and that's an incredible effort. If he's only been training MMA properly for 3 months, then it's a pretty good performance with that in mind. And if he only had one eye as well, that's that just adds to it too. But yeah, it's interesting. Like MMA is like a game of perspective because I actually thought Rocky Ogden did enough to win it. So there you go. I thought Matt really got lit up in the third round, and Rocky sort of started to find his way in the second round. So it depends how you score it, really. Like probably Matt was probably on top for sort of more of most of the fight, but I thought Rocky did more damage in the end in the second and sort of towards the end of the second and obviously through the third round. So there you go. That's MMA perspective for you. But sort of following that fight there was Caleb Rideout against Ben Johnston. It was. Again, I don't know. Caleb Rideout for me is a bit of a fun prospect. He's got some crazy knockouts on his on his resume, and this one was no different. He put Ben Johnston down with a spinning back fist, and then went on to call out Joey Luciano in the post fight. So what do you think of Caleb Rideout's performance and his chances of getting Luciano?
Yeah, and also it's great fight. It was great performance by the dude. Something we forgot to mention on the last episode that I just want to bring up now too is Ben Johnson's also a Muay Thai world champion. So not only did this kid go out there and knock out someone on the main card on Eternal on UFC Fight Pass for everyone to watch and see, he did it to a former world champion or a world champion in Muay Thai. So that makes it that much more impressive that he used a spinning elbow to starch a dude who won a world title in Muay Thai. But yeah, man, that dude is violent and exciting to watch when he fights. I like watching that dude fight. I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued by the call out too of Luciano before he even had his performance on the night in the co-main event. But yeah, if that's a fight that they're going to put together, that's going to be a delightful fight to watch for everyone.
Absolutely, and he's a bit of a showman, Caleb Rideout. He's kind of just took the mic and he shot his shot there at Joey Luciano. But I'm glad you mentioned that about Ben Johnston as well, because you could look him up on Tapology and you could see he was fighting Caleb Rideout, who was 5-2 in MMA going into the fight. And you would look at Johnston's record, see it's his MMA debut. He was 0-4 as an amateur, but this guy's a legit fighter. It's not just like your average debutant. This is a guy who knows how to fight, and Caleb Rideout managed to knock him out standing up. So that was that was a huge effort in itself. But following that, we had a bit of a controversial fight. It was probably an anticipated fight on the card. It was Ryan Gray who beat. Well, he didn't really beat, but he was declared the winner against Diego Pereira by DQ due to some illegal strikes to the back of the head. Now, I guess Diego was really in control for most of the fight for me. I thought he looked good on the night, but he showed a lot more urgency this time around. Like I felt like in his last fight against Costa, he just waited a lot, and he was kind of just struggled to get out of second gear. But this time around, he was all over Gray from the start, and for me, like when the strikes happened, for those who didn't see it, Diego was sort of landed some elbows from the top position there. The first one seemed to catch the ear. The second one seemed to not catch the ear, from what I saw. And the referee stopped the fight, and it was kind of a bit of a weird scene. Like Ryan Gray sort of looked a bit out of it afterwards, and again, in the end, he was declared the winner by DQ as the doctor refused to let him continue. So I don't know, how did you view it all?
Yeah, well, obviously I know Diego quite well. He's a former teammate of mine. Yeah, it's always been Diego's little hurdle. Diego's a real mental fighter. When he's on, you get performances like that where he's just dominating people. You get performances like the Michael Tobin head kick knockout where he just put him on another dimension and starched him, sent him to the shadow realm. But that's the thing. That's always been Diego's, I guess, thing. If he's on, and he's world class. If he's lapsing a little bit, or it's just like you said, then all of a sudden he's stuck in second gear and he can't get going, and then obviously he's losing fights. He's losing some of these fights and having some of these results that we didn't expect. And that's not taking away from any of those people that have beaten him. It's just that's just how it is. If you're not on and you're not in there getting after it, you're probably gonna lose. But yeah, this time around, the trigger was obviously pulled and he got after it. I mean, the first round he definitely won the first round, but I still feel like in the first round he was kind of not really pushing it as hard as he could. But then in the second round, he really upped the tempo and got after it and upped the aggression. And I spoke to Pasha about it afterwards, after the fight, and he's kind of said to me that's kind of what he wanted to see after obviously what happened with the Costa fight. Like he wanted to see Diego pull the trigger and be a bit more urgent and a bit more violent and kind of get after it a bit more, and that's what he did. So yeah, it's a shitty sort of result for the fight to be stopped the way it was, and then for it to be a DQ. And obviously you saw Ryan speak about it. He wasn't happy with that. So credit to that dude for saying what he said after the fight. If anyone didn't see it, he kind of just said, he wanted to come out after 4 years away and test himself. So he jumped straight in and took on one of the best people in the division and got the shit kicked out of him. And, he's obviously very disappointed and wasn't happy that the fact that he won the fight by DQ and doesn't want it on his record. So credit to that dude, man.
He refused to let the referee raise his hand as well at the end.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
He's legit. And he's had a rough go, man. It sucks for the dude that he's had all this time off and he's had all these injuries and things happen. And then, to obviously come back and just jump straight in against one of the top people like we spoke about last week, it was always going to be a tough task. But yeah, as for the strikes, they were fucking illegal. They were severely illegal. Look at Ryan's head after the fight. He had contusions, hematomas on the back of his head. He had a cut on the back of his head.
The back of his head.
They're illegal strikes, and that's just gonna happen. I mean, and look, I like Diego. I got a lot of time for Diego. He's still consider him to be one of my good friends in that. And even though we don't train together anymore since I made the move, but you're experienced enough, man. This isn't like one of your first fights. You've had a lot of fights. You've had a gang of fights, and you're a pretty experienced dude across the board. That those shots were to the back of the head and that they're illegal. You're smart enough and experienced enough to know that you can adjust, start looking for a choke, start changing your shots. You're not one of those people where it's your first fight and I need to finish this fight and you're just throwing punches and you're just trying to get them out of there. I mean, I know that is still part of it, but you're disciplined enough to know that you got to be careful in those sort of positions and look to switch it up a bit. So,
if I'm not mistaken, I think he might have even had some warnings earlier for the.
He did, yeah. I mean, look, we can you can unpack it and say that the fight should have been stopped before that, because there was a moment earlier where Ryan kind of just covered up like this and just was almost. It was almost like the dude was hoping that the ref was going to give him a way out. Obviously he's not going to quit, but there was a stage where he was just covering up and hit. And yeah, there was some warnings dished out by Phil Cassidy on the night. And but that's sort of like we spoke about, it's a shit way for that fight to go after those, pretty well 2 rounds of just domination from the Black Panther. But yeah, it's good to see. And now it's hard because you look at the guy's record and it's like a loss on his record. So it puts him, he's on 2 losses in a row now. If you look at it like that, which he isn't, like, really, he won the fight and he dominated. And he would, like, had that not been, had it continued, I'm sure Ryan would have got after it and, would have tried to do as much as he can and adjusted as much as he could. But I still think Diego was just going to keep riding that momentum and was ultimately going to put him away if that went into the third round. So it's rough. I'd like to, I'm interested to see what they're going to do now, or what Diego's going to do and what they're going to offer him sort of moving forward. And but as far as I can see it, and as far as it should be, Diego's coming off a win. So, that's a win against the former champion. So that's a cool thing to have on your record.
Absolutely, and I guess a potential 8-5 record becomes 7-6 with that DQ. So it is a bit of a, it's a bit of a setback on paper. But yeah, like you say, I think most people will consider that Diego has won that fight. But and for Ryan Gray, it's like you mentioned there, it's obviously not the return he wanted after, I think, 4 years out of the game. So it's it's disappointing for everyone, really, just the way that one ended. And it'd be interesting to see if they do try and maybe organise a rematch with those two, or whether they feel that the work that Diego did in those 2 rounds leading up to the DQ was enough to sort of show us that maybe he was the better fighter between those two. But that ball's in Eternal's court there. It's going to be an interesting watch. But like you say, Diego's one of the nice guys of MMA as well. I've had the pleasure of interviewing him a couple of times too, and we like to see people like that do well. So hopefully they can find something suitable for him.
Yeah, hopefully. And I mean, obviously, it's just going to depend on the landscape moving forward. Obviously, with this, there's potential, you could potentially do a rematch of him and Rod Costa. They're both coming off like these fights that they've had now. Like, obviously, Rod just fought Jack, Diego just fought Ryan. Even though Diego won the fight, but he's coming off a loss technically on his record, so you could probably do that. The 2 guys are both coming off losses, do a rematch. If the first fight's anything to go on, it'll, regardless of who wins, it's going to be another cracking fight, potentially. So I don't think Rod Costa can ever be in a boring fight. So Diego's certainly never been in a boring fight. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if that's something that they do moving forward, or what else kind of they decide to throw together.
Yeah, this is true. And before we get to Rod Costa, we had Joey Luciano and Tristan Mad Dog Murphy in the co-main event there, and it was pretty one-way traffic in the end. Joey Luciano is he was 3-1 going into the fight. We've seen him have some good wins along the way, but I think he's shown that he's a real problem in that division. He just he smothered Mad Dog in the end. So what do you think of Joey Luciano versus Tristan Mad Dog Murphy?
Yeah, well, like I said, going into it, on the feet, it was always going to be like a 50-50 fight. It was going to just sort of be up in the air, but the fight was going to be settled in the wrestling and grappling exchanges, and it was going to be determined by who could capitalize on those positions. And obviously Luciano was able to do that, man. And that dude is he's legit, and he's massive too. Like, they're both big guys for the division, but he's huge. Like, so he was getting after it, and just did his thing. Really, it's a lot similar to the fight with Blake Shepard. Just kind of wore on him and just smothered him and beat on him, and then ultimately put him away. But I mean, it's what I spoke about leading into the fight. Like, the win over Dave Martinez, like, that wasn't a fight to look at and go, oh, okay, he's back. He's slot right into this division, or divisions that he's in now. And this is like, he's got his momentum back. This was going to be the test. And unfortunately for Tristan, it didn't work out for him, and Joey was able to get the win. But yeah, Tristan's obviously training at Combat Training Center. He's got a gang of sponsors behind him, a gang of people supporting him. He's got good training partners, good coaches. So, like to see the dude just keep on keeping on, overcome this little hiccup and get in there and fight again. But like I said, this was going to be a test for him, and Joey was able to get in there and put on a show and slot sort of another win on his record. So for him, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do with him moving forward, if they're going to give him that fight with Caleb Rideout and kind of throw that together. I know Kevin Joussette's a former teammate of his that they trained together at Absolute, but Kevin's obviously made the move to sit kickboxing. And he's obviously fighting Myers moving forward. Potentially that could be a fight on the cards for him. Like, Kevin's a big dude for welterweight as well. So, like, they're both gigantic dudes. They're both athletic. They're both, have a sort of grappling pedigree and sort of swagger about them. So that's a fight that I'd love to watch. That gets me excited, a scrap like that. So it'd be interesting to see if that potentially comes together. So there's a lot of exciting matchups for Luciano moving forward. It's an exciting division to be a part of.
That's a fun matchup. There you go. Justin Van Heerden, the matchmaker again, comes through. But is Kevin Jousset match with Matt Myers? Is that what you said in there?
I think so. I think I saw something like that. Oh no, not Matt Myers. I don't know why I thought it was Matt Myers. I think because Aiden Aguilera is fighting Jack Becker, so I just assumed that Matt Myers is on the card as well, because they're usually on the same card. No, I believe he's fighting. Oh, who is he fighting? Look, we're gonna have to check that out. But I know he's fighting on the Melbourne card in April. Kevin Joussette's back, and he's fighting on the Melbourne card.
Oh yeah, I did see that actually. Now that I think about it, yeah, I can't remember who the opponent was either. But we'll have to touch base on that in episode 8, I think, because I can't remember. But I have heard a little whisper that Matt Myers will be on that Eternal card as well.
Good. That'll be good to see.
Yeah. It's a fun opponent's been mentioned as well, but I don't think anything's been closed yet. So we might talk about that one off air, because I don't want to let the cat out of the bag just yet. But we'll see what transpires there. But he's a fun fighter, Matt Myers, as well. So it'd be good to see him in there. But back to Eternal 64. The main event was. Obviously, Jack Jenkins, the Eternal Featherweight Champion, taking on Rod Costa. It was a grudge match of sorts. Rod Costa had obviously been pretty aggressive in demanding this match on social media, and he got his wish. And sometimes you got to be careful what you wish for, I guess. In the end, he's tough as anything, Rod Costa. He showed his chin. But at the end of the day, he was probably outgunned in the end, and he struggled to get in the fight. And the calf kicks. I don't know if you saw a picture he posted on social media earlier today, but his legs in pretty rough shape after those kicks. And it was a clinical performance from Jack Becker in the end, and he retains his title and potentially onto bigger and better things. What do you think of that one?
It was interesting to see how the fight played out. Like I said, going into the fight, if it looks pretty, it's Jack's winning the fight. So, and that's kind of what we saw. Credit to Rod though, man. That dude is just a machine, and just kept coming, and didn't look like he, didn't quit at any point. So full credit and respect to Rod too for making the fight what it was, because it takes two people to produce these fights, and as good as Jack looked, and obviously he got the result. That's the way for that to be to sort of pan out that way is going to come with an opponent who's game and who's going to stay in there and who's going to allow you all those opportunities to showcase your abilities and get out there and perform. And full credit to Rod too. The last 2 rounds he walked forward, and even though he was getting outstruck and Jack landed more volume and was picking him apart, Rod landed the occasional shot and kind of stung the champ a little bit. Got a takedown, in the last round, and didn't kind of ran out of time to do anything with it. But, the guy produced his own sort of little moments of adversity and brilliance, that the champ had to deal with. And he did just that. Like, I spoke to Jack yesterday about the fight, and, he kind of, he was like, he said he was very happy with his performance. The dude's hopefully going to, get a potential, well, I'd like to see him get a potential opportunity to join someone like Stephen Essig on Contender Series, or maybe just slot straight into the UFC. But it was kind of how the fight, how I pictured it is how it played out. something that I was a bit confused by, and is almost I got the vibe that the champ almost wanted it to go for the 5 rounds or go the distance, because it looked like there was plenty of opportunities where he could have just put Rod away, like especially in the second and third. Like, there was a lot of times there where Rod was kind of just frozen, wasn't really countering, wasn't really doing much, and it kind of looked like Jack was just it was kind of just would get in, land the combinations, get back out of range, so he wasn't at risk for any counters or anything like that, but then would kind of reset completely, and then almost let Rod off the hook every time. Was if he just followed on and stayed on him. But maybe that's maybe that was his game plan. I think he did predict a 3rd round TKO leading into the fight, and he definitely in the 3rd round amped up the pressure and the volume and the damage, and for a moment there it looked like that was going to be the outcome. As you said, Rod's leg got lit up, got destroyed. But yeah, I don't know. I just feel like there was an opportunity for the fight to get put away and not to go to a decision. But at the same time, I wasn't in there with the guy, and I don't know what it was feeling like when he was throwing these shots, and Rod was just game and kept coming and just stayed in there. And could be the other end of the spectrum. Could be Jack could have well and truly put him away, but decided to be a bit merciful and just decided to kind of maybe did like the RDA approach to Moicano and was like, I'll just keep leaning, keep tagging him, but I don't need to like put the dude away. Like, I can just kind of do what I do and show out and show people that I can do it, well, what I can do over a 25-minute period. But obviously, can't take anything away from those boys. They put on a hell of a fight, hell of a main event. Both absolute savages in there, and it was really dope to watch. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it had a bit of that feeling, didn't it? Like you said, Jack seemed to let Rod off the hook a few times when he sort of had him pinned against the cage. It felt like he was only really a few punches away from closing the show, but then he kind of stepped off and reset. But yeah, like maybe he needed those extra rounds. Maybe he just wanted to showcase his talents. Maybe he hurt himself. Maybe he had a sore hand or something. I guess we never know. But from the outside looking in, it kind of looked like a little bit of a sparring session. But it was kind of curious for me just watching how Rod Costa went about his business. Like, he was landing jabs, like you say. He landed the odd shot, but he didn't really seem to attempt a takedown until around, I think, round 4. He just kind of seemed to stick to plan A, which didn't seem to be working, but it seemed like a bit of an unusual sort of tactic from him to not go to what he knows in jiu-jitsu.
Well, his leg was lit up, but also it's kind of like Rod's overall MMA game's gone like from here to here. Like, he's added those other sort of areas, and he keeps increasing in those areas. But the grappling is like super high level. But the bridge with the wrestling to be able to get to the grappling exchanges just wasn't really connecting in that fight. Like, he got him down in the 5th, but every other shot that he did was usually, I think I counted, it was like 4 or 5 of them were attempts after a hard calf kick or leg kick. So he'd kind of wear the kick and then just shoot from way far out. Would get kicked, because obviously if you're getting kicked, if someone's kicking you, they're not at a range where they're like, the way that Jack was throwing these kicks, he was still at a decent range, like he was away. And like I said, he would land stuff and get straight back out. So when Rod was shooting, Jack had all the time in the world to sprawl. So it was kind of hard for Rod to get in and get to the hips or be able to make these attachments to him. But something that Volk said to me today that I found interesting is like, Rod seemed to kind of just not like he in the 4th and 5th, he kind of started walking forward a bit and like trying to walk Jack down and kind of like went after it a bit. But if you're already getting tagged, like you're already getting lit up with shots and you're already getting tagged, I mean, you might as well just fucking go for it. Like, you're a world champion jiu-jitsu black belt. Like, you might as well just rush in or blitz in and try and get a hold of the dude and try and potentially get him down and use your high level grappling ability and pedigree, because you're already getting tagged. So you might as well, like, you might eat a few shots getting in or rushing in like that, but you're already getting hit. So you might as well have done that. But full credit to Rod, man. That dude's a fucking animal, and there's not many people in the fight game that actually live by, and actually I would like when I say, like, when people are like talking about fighting anyone, anywhere, anytime, any notice, he's like one of the only people in the sport that actually lives by that shit. So yeah, I got a lot of respect for that dude. Obviously I fought the dude, and as we spoke about leading into this fight, they both were, coming into the fight with a lot of momentum. Rod had shown many times he can be the hammer. Unfortunately, this past weekend he was the nail. But hey, that's how the sport goes sometimes. But he's fully going to be able to bounce back. He's got a great team behind him, and he's going to be able to move forward and get himself back in the mix 100%, like no doubts.
Absolutely, and yeah, Rod said it himself after the fight. He said, I shot my shot, and it didn't work out, and he's got some big balls on him, on him, Rod Costa, and obviously it didn't work out this time, but I'm sure we'll see him back. It could be on short notice, and it could be against anyone at any weight class really. But I've had the pleasure of interviewing Rod a couple of times myself, and he's one of the nice guys of MMA as well. So hopefully it'll be good to see him get back in there and get something done. But Jack Jenkins' name has been connected to the UFC, at least locally, in recent times. Has he done enough now? Do you think the UFC comes calling for Jack Jenkins now?
I mean, I think he has. The dude's on a 6-5 win streak. His record's 9-2. These last few fights have been dominant performances. Like, you look at how he won the fight, like the belt initially against Diego. The first 2 rounds he overcame, and especially early on in that fight, he had to overcome some adversity and then adjusted and was able to sort of put a beating on Diego and end up getting the win. And you watch what he did to Medina, and you just kind of see how he's just been linking these together. The guy's got a lot of momentum. He's obviously super talented. Like we spoke about, we want to see the Anzacs rise up. We want to see people get these opportunities because it elevates the game as a whole. So I think the dude's done enough. So hopefully, you see the guy get a contender series call up, or maybe just a straight shot in the UFC, or whatever the case is, and then we just go from there. But yeah, I think it's warranted, and I think he's earned it. So he said it himself. He said people doubted him when he first came into it, that he'd even last in the sport. Then they doubted that he deserves to be in the UFC. Now, they're doubting that he'll last once he gets there. And the dude's motivated and pumped up and, ready to prove people wrong. So I think, he's ticking the boxes, and he's done the work here on the regional circuit. So why not give the dude a shot? If you're going to give people, a bunch of people, a shot who've padded their records and gotten there and then just been exposed, fucking why not give a guy who's got a legit win streak behind him, who's fought some really tough dudes, put on some great performances, a chance? We're giving some of these other flops a chance from some of these gyms that I won't name, that are just padding their records because they have a promotion that they run themselves, and then you get in there and they get exposed. But why not give Jack a chance?
Yeah, absolutely, and you can, like you said, you can see the motivation and the passion that he has. So the UFC could do a lot worse than Jack Jenkins, and has done a lot worse, as you mentioned there, than Jack Jenkins. But you could do a lot worse than liking and subscribing the Fight News Australia YouTube channel to keep track of Fight Talk Down Under. You could do a lot worse than tuning in next week for Fight Talk Down Under Ep.7. Catch us on YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Podbean, and Fight News Australia. Obviously, you've already done that because you're listening right now. But stay tuned for Episode 8.
And stay tuned this week for Saucy Picks, because it's back. It's back this week. And I've got a hot sauce that'll steal your soul that I'm reviewing. So get excited.
I gotta watch it. You never know what might stop you. Here I am.